about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, over the weekend, many of us were shocked by the death of Kyle Busch, 41-year-old NASCAR champion, race car champion, who just recently, came in 8th in his latest NASCAR run, and leaving behind 2 young children, a young wife, and having died of pneumonia, which turned into sepsis. And of course, many people have been asking, how could this happen? He's a healthy guy, fit. This sadly reminds us how delicate our bodies could be and how we need to be very, very aware and always looking out for sepsis. So people always ask, what is sepsis and what's the difference? So if you remember, Bill Clinton went into urosepsis and had to be hospitalized after he had a urinary tract infection. So some infections could be localized. With pneumonia, a lobe of the lung. With Bill Clinton, at first, bladder or kidney. But then sepsis can ensue when the body starts to react to the infection. I think somebody described it as you have a small fire in a corner of, let's say, an office building, but then the whole sprinkler system goes off. And then you start getting water damage. Whether the fire gets put out or not, you have other parts of the office that are now getting involved with what's happening over here. And so with sepsis, when your body picks up this, and your body always tries to go into survival mode. And so it'll shunt blood to the heart, shunt blood to the brain. It'll trigger inflammatory cells. But unfortunately, sometimes the chaos of it all and the speed of it all puts you into a life-threatening condition where you could die, go into septic shock and die. We talked to parents about febrile seizures and fever. A fever is a body's natural response to fight infection. At times, it could be a good thing. But if that fever comes on super duper fast, it could cause a seizure. So sepsis, to me, how I've always looked at it, is in the chaos of an infection and the body trying to fight, everything isn't working in unison and your body doesn't handle that chaos well. So we need to recognize sepsis, and I'll tell you how. And we also have to understand and be humbled by how an infection could turn from something where you just need a Z-Pack and could still go back to school or work to you need to go to the hospital. So it's very interesting. In the 90s, when Z-Pack came out, azithromycin, and again, kudos to Pfizer. I think Pfizer's come out with some great drugs. But having been in training where I saw patients die of pneumonia, I found it a little odd where now we have an antibiotic for community-acquired pneumonia, and I'm diagnosing pneumonia, and they're going back home. Or they're going to work the next day, and I go, okay, whoa, you have pneumonia. You need to be in bed. You need to rest. You need to recover. With pneumonia, your lungs aren't getting proper oxygen. You need to... But since the 90s, we got very lackadaisical, some of us, in terms of medicine, as it pertains to diseases where we used to watch you at home or admit you into the hospital for. And I have patients calling up going, yeah, I have pneumonia and I'm not feeling better. And I go, when did you leave the hospital? They go, no, I haven't. The doctor online just gave me an antibiotic. And I believe Kyle Busch got a shot. So that was maybe penicillin or Rocephin. But he went and he raced, and I know he wanted to race, but you wonder, should they have watched him more? And then unfortunately, he went into a full-blown sepsis and ended up losing his life only at the age of 41. And so there are signs of sepsis that we recommend you look at. So here's a couple acronyms to spot early sepsis. One is your temperature. If you continue to have a high temperature or a low temperature. Because patients will say, I don't have a fever, but I am freezing. And it's 90 degrees outside. I'm like, that could be an early sign of sepsis. Could be flu, but that could be sepsis. Time, T for temperature, I, infection. Usually you have sepsis if there's an infection. M would be mental decline. In time, sleep, being confused, difficulty kind of waking up, concentrating. And then E for this acronym for spotting early sepsis, E means you're extremely ill. I think they might have been kind of stretching with that one, but you're not just, okay, you know what, I have a little bit of a cough. You have shortness of breath. You're having rapid pulses. You're feeling really sick. If you're feeling really sick, you could be going into sepsis. So that's that acronym. Now, sepsis has its own, mnemonic. So S is slurred speech, confusion or disorientation. E, extreme shivering, muscle pain or fever. P is for passing no urine all day or pale or discolored skin. So if you're not peeing, all right, or if you're pale, that could be a sign of sepsis. S is for severe breathlessness, or I think of shortness of breath for S. I, they say I is it feels like I'm going to die, or an overwhelming sense of doom. That's what the I stands for. And then S is if your skin is mottled, discolored, clammy, or sweaty. And so we will, if we're recognizing early sepsis, we'll put you on antibiotics. We'll do IV fluids. We'll make sure you're having good cardiac output, good renal output, because if you don't have good cardiac or renal output, then you could go into septic shock and die. And I know it's really, really scary because when you see somebody so well loved and so healthy and young die of this, it makes you nervous. And I don't want anybody, who has a simple cold to be going to the hospital saying I have sepsis. But we're being a lot more liberal with antibiotics online, and just follow up in a few days. If I at all suspect pneumonia, I don't treat that online. You need to get examined, and we need to know what lobe, and we need to know where your oxygen status is. If there's a kidney infection I'm suspecting, no, I don't treat that online because you have a higher risk, again, of going into sepsis. So if you have something as severe as those, please get yourself checked out and ask the doctor and say, look, how do I know I'm not going into sepsis? What should I be looking for? 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. The call is free, the consultation is free, and you can speak with a live agent right now. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now to find out if you have a case and how much you could potentially get.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-679-0800. That's 800-679-0800. 800-679-0800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X with Dr. Dahlia now spelled out. Facebook, the Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So yesterday I got a text saying that the U.S. had launched missile strikes in Iran in self-defense. And so, of course, the first thing I was, thinking of is, right, yeah, is Trump saying it's self-defense, or, was there something that Iran was doing that was putting us at risk? And so, U.S. Central Command said that the strikes were in self-defense, designed to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. Now, the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Tuesday that it had downed a U.S. drone and fired at a fighter jet and another drone that entered Iranian airspace. They said that Iran had the legitimate and definite right to retaliate against any U.S. ceasefire violations. So they claimed, that's what they claimed. And our spokesperson, Captain Tim Hawkins, said U.S. forces conducted self-defense strikes in southern Iran today to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. Good. Protect that. We have every right to do that. They said U.S. Central Command continues to defend our forces while using restraint during the ongoing ceasefire. So I guess they targeted, according to BBC, an area near Bandar Abbas, a southern port city and home of an Iranian naval base that sits on the Strait of Hormuz. And Iranian state media said that they were investigating after explosions were heard. And, my concern with what's been going on with Iran is, every time we hear that, okay, they're coming to the table, they change your mind. It's almost like, the story of Ramses II, right? With Moses, let my people go. All right. I changed my mind. I have another plague. All right. Okay, I'll let your people go. Then he lets them go at the end, and then he changes his mind, and then he has his troops go after them again. And so, when you have somebody that is, an individual, or like Iran, a regime that wants to hurt others and suppress others, the second they rethink what control they have, they change your mind. And I grew up with individuals who, it's actually, from a psychological standpoint, when there's somebody that changes their mind a lot, all right, in some cases, we see this in people who are abusive. Okay, they're in a good mood. They said I could do this, and then all of a sudden, no, they say no. I got that all the time growing up, where I would be allowed to do something. I would be allowed to do a school field trip, and all of a sudden they go, no, we're not letting you do it. I'm like, come on. Well, that could be a sign of issues. It could also be a sign that they are very paranoid. We think the Iranian regime is paranoid. It could also be a sign that they are, they get these false senses of confidence. They have narcissism. They think that they're going to have an ally. So you know what? I don't have to give in anymore. I'm good. China's got my back. And then China's like, what are you talking about? You're delusional. So when I see this, I think of severe mental illness. I also think of chaos within the regime. And that's a very, very difficult entity to negotiate with. And so Marco Rubio said that a deal was still possible, pointed to talks on Tuesday between Iran's top negotiator and foreign minister and Qatar's prime minister. They said, we'll see if we can make progress. I think it's a lot of talking back and forth about specific language in the initial document, so it'll take a few days. He was in India at the time. And he said that President Donald Trump had expressed his desire to make it. He's either going to make it a good deal or no deal. So one positive about this, and something I've also noticed with family members, etc., is there could be a big blow up. There could be an all-out war. And then the next day, everybody's friendly again. Right? Again, not a sign of mental stamina. But people have asked, they go, if we bombed Iran and Iran has threatened us for 40 some years, isn't there no going back? No, I believe there is. And one thing about Trump is he has shown that, you know what, you could be my enemy, but I'll still find a way to work with you and make a deal. Rather than people accuse Trump of, being weak or being taco or being, which I really don't like that term, being narcissistic and, wanting to just start World War III and bomb the world, for him to have this much patience with Iran, who has been screwing with us, not to mention funding Hezbollah, Hamas, helping Russia with the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, these guys, this Revolutionary Guard, they're pieces of work. So for Trump to show such restraint, it proves that the liberal media is full of it, where he's just bombing indiscriminately or whatever, for him to offer these ceasefires. Now, on the other end, people are like, come on, what's Trump doing? Okay, every time he gives them a ceasefire, every time he says, well, a deal's almost there and it doesn't happen. So, I think there is a plan. And I believe, Trump has to be very, very careful, because if he does what the liberal media is accusing him of, there's going to be a lot of casualties, including innocent Iranians. And we understand in war, sometimes we do lose innocent people, but he doesn't want that. He just wants to very specifically target, right, the terrorists and the Revolutionary Guard. And so it's not going to be let's just, Hiroshima, the area. No, we're not going to do that. It's just, he's going to have to make a deal soon. And what Iran is, I think, identifying is with the midterms, they think that as long as oil prices are up and gas prices are up and this war goes on, Trump is going to fear what happens with the midterms and will be more inclined to make a deal. Well, one thing about Trump is he is, I believe, from a psychological standpoint, more concerned about his legacy than the midterms. The midterms are important because they could affect his legacy. And he doesn't want the GOP to lose, any control of the House or Senate with the midterms. However, he really wants to be the president that finally put an end to this horrific multi-decade regime in Iran. And as he has said, time is on his side. And if we're playing chicken, we're going to win. So yes, the midterms can pose an issue. But even if, let's say, this stops, the war stops, gas prices probably won't go down till the fall to the degree that they need to. If this does get resolved, obviously the earlier the better. But, if it's more important for us to ensure that we have peace in the Middle East. Now, the U.S. is not too happy with NATO. And I am still very shocked at NATO and the UN's role, especially when we are hearing over and over and over again the atrocities that the Iranian regime is doing to their people. So I'm really kind of confused as to why they're not intervening and why it has to be U.S. and Israel helping Iran's people. But we are being told that the U.S. is planning to significantly reduce military contributions available to assist European allies in crisis, fighter jets, warships, mid-air refueling aircraft, according to German news outlet Spiegel. So the NATO alliance is already under strain. Some European countries are now concerned that Washington may just completely withdraw from NATO, according to Reuters. And Donald Trump has basically called out European leaders going, you're not spending enough on your own militaries. So he plans to withdraw thousands of troops to Germany. We saw some concern with who he's stationing in Poland, and we have I think 30,000 troops in Germany. We also have troops in South Korea and other. But in terms of Europe, who's been at peace for a long time, we put our men and women there, away from their families, to be there, not only for our interests but European interests. Well, now we have the issue with the Strait of Hormuz. And you don't see European allies help. So he said he's considering withdrawing from the NATO alliance. And then if that happens, then we don't come to their rescue. Now, having an Iran with a nuclear weapon who has vowed that they want to wipe Israel off the face of this earth, if Europe doesn't think they're next, they're wrong. If it's after Israel, they're going to go after other countries. That's it. And so they need the U.S. and they need to ensure that Iran doesn't have nuclear capabilities. They are being very naive to think that if all they do is keep their head in their sand, everything's going to be fine. And so Trump shrinking our military donations to NATO, isn't that unjustified? That to me is completely justified. You know why? And you know, why are we giving them subs? Why are we giving them more destroyers? If they're not honoring their NATO alliance, why should we? 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we honored those who have fallen and sacrificed for our country. And this weekend, in addition to Memorial Day, I went to a wedding. And this wedding was one of the best weddings I've ever been to. And we're in the process now of planning a wedding for my son. And his fiance is amazing, and she has me come and give my opinion, which is really, really cool, because I like giving my opinion. And it's a really good thing to do, even if you don't want somebody's opinion. Ask them for it so that they feel included. But she really, really because I've party planned and I've organized so many events, so it's nice to be able to give an opinion. And my experience with weddings, and I have never disliked any wedding I've gone to. Every wedding I've gone to has been amazing, has been beautiful. But there was something about this wedding that has characteristics that I think we need to emulate for a perfect wedding. And it was near perfect, if not perfect. And I know you don't want to always say perfect. Perfect would be, Aragorn, Viggo Mortensen coming across the room saying, will you dance with me and move to Rivendell? That would be perfect. But so that didn't happen. But for the most part, it was a great wedding. So first, shout out to Lauren and Matt Kalikas, who got married. I love you guys. But what was very interesting about this wedding, as opposed to others, is and again, every wedding I've gone to, I've loved. But what I guess for me really, really appealed to me is it wasn't as traditional and like royal weddings. Royal weddings are nice, but I like the ones where they're practical. So I love Friends. Friends is one of my favorite shows. And so she walked to the aisle with a very slow, beautiful Friends song. The Friends theme song in a beautiful, I forget who sung that version. Her dogs, hers and his dogs, Blue and Nanook, right, were groomsmen and a bridesmaid, and or the ring bearers, and they came down the aisle. I mean, you include your dogs, and I've gone to my students' weddings who've done the same thing. When I saw that they had the dogs at their weddings, I was like, okay, that's brilliant. I mean, my dogs would probably pee and poop along the way, but they're family. One of his favorite movies is Braveheart, so you had the Braveheart music, which is just awesome. And the bridal party included people they loved, people that were close, and it was just so family feeling. It was, and then what also makes a good wedding is everybody feels they're kind of included and they're, I sat next to amazing people, so my table was good. You definitely want to sit next to people you like, because that really, really helps. Now, I don't know if they were happy that they got stuck with me, but I was happy that we got to be at their table. But the music wasn't just millennial music or Gen Z music. They also had, 90s stuff and 80s stuff. I mean, my genre of music is mostly 90s because that's when I went to college and stuff, but I like the 80s too. And so it included everybody. So you didn't feel like you were too old or too young. Line dancing. You have to have line dancing. Although I can't believe how much I forgot how to line dance. But then, that kind of happens after you've, visited the bar a couple times. But when you're looking at these events, whether it's a quinceañera, whether it's a bar mitzvah, whether it's a confirmation party, whether it's a 40th birthday party, which I'm going to be celebrating soon, whether it's a wedding, there's a piece to it that I notice that some people completely forget that these guys nailed. And it's that, everybody concentrates on, where the focus is supposed to be. The eyes are supposed to be at the altar or the chuppah, or the eyes are supposed to be by the ark, or the eyes are supposed to be by the, by the pastor, or the eyes are supposed to be, here. And so you're like, okay, you're here building and supporting, and you are there to build and support. But I've seen this at other weddings, where the outskirts and people are just kind of, they're just kind of sitting there and they're not dancing, they're not singing, they're like, hi, and, they don't know anybody, and they don't, and it's a nice wedding, it's a beautiful wedding, they feel happy that they're a part of it, but they also feel outside. And so the way you sit everybody, or the way you include them, the way you greet them, the way you include in the music, the connecting with them, you can't necessarily, I can't put that in writing, but it's something that is, I think, paramount to all weddings. And so you want to have the focus, on the bar mitzvah boy, or the quinceañera girl, or the bride or the groom. You want that, and you want to make sure that's there. But then for people to really, really love it and really feel connected to you, because why are you inviting people? It's always stressful. Who do you invite? I mean, I have, if I used my full wedding guest list for my son's coming up wedding, I mean, they would break the bank. I mean, we have just too many people to invite. So, you're already kind of nervous that you're letting people go and you're not allowing them to come to the wedding because you're limiting numbers. And so you're already going through that stress. But the people that do come, you're inviting them not because you just want the gift, not because you have to, but it's because you want to connect with them. The person who was at your child's baptism, the person who was at your child's bris, the family that was there at your at your wedding, or you bond with them, and so you want to make sure you still have that connection and that bond. And I felt just with every wedding I've gone to, but especially with this one, that was there, and it was very, very magical, and it was very, very cool. Now, even the dogs, even Blue, one of my favorite dogs on the planet, came up and licked my hand. And I was like, hey, the problem is then I had to high five somebody and she got slobber on her. But that's okay. That's okay. It's dog slobber, so it's okay. 3-second rule, I think, with the dog slobber. So, planning any event, whether it's your birthday, whether it's 4th of July, whether it's, you're going to be overwhelmed with the focus of what you need to do, but just spend 5-10 minutes on how to ensure that everybody's going to have a good time. Don't just assume everybody's going to have a good time. I'm right now working on a surprise party for my son for his graduation. He, didn't want to party at first, but then I think he was thinking about it, but he didn't want to ask. So I'm like, you don't want to party? I'm not going to force you to have a party. He's like, oh, okay. But, my birthday's coming up, so I'm going to do a birthday party. He's like, okay. So I sent him an invite to send, to some of his friends if he wants. It's going to be my birthday party, but it's not a birthday party. It's going to be a surprise party for him. And so, right now I'm in the planning, and I'm like, what do I do to make sure that everybody feels, connected and whatever. And so it's an important thing to do, but it's a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, I've been to as many funerals as I've been to weddings. And so you don't have a lot of opportunities to have events where people can really connect and feel loved and I mean, I'm sure, with funerals you could do that too, but when you have the opportunity to make people smile and have a bright time in their life, do it and do it right. And these guys should write a book because they did a really, really good job. So congratulations, Matt and Lauren. I love you. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We really struggle now in this generation to see people, embrace the traditionalism of marriage and, having kids when you have such pressures on younger individuals who are afraid to get married and and so a lot of people have been telling me they've only been to like one or two weddings and they don't really see any more, future weddings or christenings or baptisms in their future. And I really hope marriage comes back. I really hope that, the young generation does find monogamy a positive. They do find a way to financially have, a family. I really do believe that, you don't have to be rich to have kids. I mean, I was poor when I, got pregnant and it was, you make it work. But also we make it work because you have a village. You have friends that support you if you don't have family that supports you. And make sure you have that, for those individuals that are going, God, I don't know if I want to get married or I don't know what I want to do or I don't know, talk to your support system and say, look, I've been hesitating because I'm nervous about divorce. I'm nervous about money. I'm nervous about, and talk to your support system and say, and they'll be like, look, we'll be watching and we'll have your back. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I need to apologize to y'all. I have for years, and I'm not overly apologetic about this because I like what I have said for years, but I might need to readjust what I'm saying in recent events. And so I have been saying I'm American. And whether we have a Democratic president or Republican president, we're America first. We don't want just a single party rule. We want fair elections. If the American people feel a Democrat is going to represent them, well, and they vote and it's legitimate, he's our president. If it's not legitimate, we need to ensure that legitimacy exists. But I don't need to have just Republican presidents or just Democrat presidents or Republican congressmen or just Democrat. I mean, we want to make sure we have checks and balances. We want opinions. This is what America is. And so I don't mind if we've had Democratic presidents or Republican presidents. I might dislike some of the policies and call them out, like Biden's vaccine mandate and Obamacare. But for the most part, though, being American, you support the system and you support the democracy. I am, though, going to now take a little bit of a step back, and I'm going to have to be very, very careful who I call Democrat, because the Democrat that I'm thinking of is the Bill Clinton Democrat, the Barack Obama Democrat. Unfortunately, the Democrats might be the Ilhan Omars, Ocasio-Cortezes, or this Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner, if you guys have been watching what's going on, he was the Democratic candidate for Maine Senate, for the Senate race in Maine. And he had a Nazi-style tattoo that he changed. But for him to tattoo this, right, I'd be proud of it. Okay, if Democrats want to protect their party, you probably want to rethink about having somebody who, supported the Nazi party to the degree that they tattooed insignias on their chest. Now, he covered it up. I think he changed it. But it was, the tattoo wasn't a swastika, it was a Totenkopf, symbol adopted by Adolf Hitler's troops in Nazi Germany. He said, I wasn't aware of this link. My bad. It was an accident. Really. And he said, I absolutely would not have gone through life having this on my chest if I knew that. And to insinuate that I did is disgusting. He said, I'm already planning to getting this removed. Well, so, some people might say, look, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I wouldn't. But some people might say, you know what? One off. He did something dumb. He liked to signal. I mean, how many times have people said something and they didn't realize that there were undertones, to it? I mean, I grew up with my grandmother telling me all the time, get your cotton picking hands off of that. Get your cotton picking hands off of it. And she would always be smacking my hands. I was young. I didn't understand what that term was. And it was a term that they were commonly using in the 50s and 60s. So now here I'm a kid in the late 70s and 80s, and I'm hearing that term. But we don't do that anymore. And so I understand that there could be some people that just are clueless. But he's not clueless. And when you read what he wrote on the social media platform Reddit, where he apparently called himself communist, allegedly, said police officers were bastards. Okay, now this is starting to kind of all come together. But this guy's got a screw loose. Now, he, on the podcast Pod Save America, according to... let me give credit where credit is due. The Hill. He said that he only did that to get a rise out of people. And it did not reflect his true beliefs at the time. Okay, well, he's a U.S. Army veteran. And I believe now he's like an oyster farmer. He wants to now become the state's next mayor. I'm sorry, senator. He wants to win the primary and oust Susan Collins. And he's expected to win the primary. And you served in our military, which would be a huge asset, except you've mocked soldiers. So I'm sure many of you seen, especially this Purple Heart veteran. Many of you have seen the post. It's now a deleted Reddit post where he criticized a soldier who was shot multiple times by the Taliban in 2012. So he wrote, dumb mother blink didn't deserve to live. He said at least his stupidity and fat, word for butt, wheezing, are available for all future infantrymen to witness and hold in contempt. Now, this was combat footage of somebody up on hills, short breath. I mean, how's he making fun of this guy? He said poor marksmanship on the Taliban's part is the only reason this mouth breather made it home. Mouth breather made it home. he was referring to, I guess the video came from the helmet cam of U.S. Army veteran Ted Daniels. So he was referring to Ted Daniels, who was shot 4 times and awarded the Purple Heart. So you start to put all this together, and do the Democrats really want him representing them? And so my worry is, as much as I'm like, look, I support America. America, is blessed with the ability to have, multiple ideas and freedom of speech and the ability for, people to become elected in a democracy. But they start to really, really worry about who the next Democrat is going to be. Because this is some frightening stuff, especially when you didn't hear many Democrats condemn the Hamas attack on Israel. You don't see them speak out against anti-Semitism. They're anti our first responders, some of them. The average moderate Democrat isn't. They're pretty smart. Like John Fetterman, I mean, you could, pretty logical. And I love those Democrats. But the next senator, if he is able to displace Susan Collins, who is not very popular, and she's a Republican, but more Republican in name only, not very, conservative. This guy could be the next senator in Maine. They are expecting him to, in a landslide, win the Democratic primary. So, my question to Democrats is, look, you have a lot of people support you, but they can't support you if this is who you support. This is who you're backing. But you're seeing more and more where they just care about the D. If you really want to preserve your party, then you want to make sure you're embracing ideals that are good common sense and non-racist, non-anti-Semitic, non-anti-military, not anti-fat, not anti, and it not pro-fraud. I mean, the D is important for the Democrats. I get that, but you got to come up with better candidates. And if they don't, and this is who ends up, getting elected, then the Democratic Party is going to be the party of people who ascribe to this sort of discrimination or Nazism, and that's not what the Democratic Party, I don't want to see the Democratic Party become that way. Because then you really fear democracy, and you fear that somebody like that could take over. And then, if you are an American, then you're not really Nazi. Nazism was fascism. So how could you represent America in a democratic republic, in a representative democracy, if you support Nazism? What are you going to do if you get control? 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.